clinical research industry. The idea that you can move science forward, have a positive impact on patients' lives, it's an incredible place to spend your career. But when it comes time to do something a bit different, be a bit innovative, disrupt the status quo, it gets a little bit harder. It oftentimes feels like there's a lot of parallels to a Mount Everest expedition. You're going into a harsh environment where success can be elusive. So a bit on me and my background. There's two key moments in my life that pulled me into the industry that I wanted to share. It was my senior year of college. I was having severe headaches, went to the doctor's office, and a couple hours later was diagnosed with a brain tumor. I spent the next several months not knowing what would come next. And in that time, there's a lot to think about. Mortality, how you want to spend your time. And at the end of that several months, I had a very good prognosis, something that wasn't going to affect me in my lifetime, and things were looking really good. But the brain tumor experience really not only made me feel fortunate, but made me appreciate that others don't have as good of a prognosis, and it forever changed where I wanted to spend my time in my career. The other key moment was having the fortune of joining the Michael J. Fox Foundation, an incredible organization helping the Parkinson's community connect to clinical research and fund great science. First week of orientation for new staff, Debbie Brooks, the co-founder, sits folks down with a very direct message. Pharma are not bad guys. Every treatment, every cure requires the investment of biotechs and pharmaceutical companies to move things forward. So rather than stay on the sidelines, you need to find ways to lean in, align yourself with those partners, set them up for success, and make it possible that they can bring more solutions faster to patients. It's the only way progress is possible. The message resonated with me, I was hooked, and I've been in the industry ever since. So I am a software developer by trade. I have a lot of friends who are software developers, and we like to talk about our industries and share. We're all building in different industries, and we share what are the challenges, the hurdles, where do things get tough. Every industry has its own difficulties. Strict regulation, long sales cycles, that's not unique or specific to clinical research. But as I was sharing my stories with friends, as I was spending more time in the industry, it definitely feels like innovation is harder here. I couldn't really put my finger on it. It feels like we're one of the toughest summits out there relative to other industries when it comes to bringing innovation forward. And over the years, there was two key moments in my mind that really solidified why and what are the challenges or the friction that we're up against as folks that are trying to do things a bit different. The first experience was while I was working at an e-clinical company. We had a brand new idea. It was pretty disruptive. It had never been done before in the industry. And we had a big pitch at the campus of a pharmaceutical company to bring the decision makers forward and get the idea in front of them. So there I am, driving to the pharma campus, wearing my best suit, very excited. I'm envisioning success. The deal closes, the handshakes, the high fives, the standing ovation. It was early in my career. I was a bit naive. And so this is what success looked like for me. And I'm halfway through the pitch, and it's not trending in this direction. This vision, standing ovation, it's starting to fade. One of the key decision makers started saying, hey, timing, end of year, maybe we revisit next quarter, and I could tell we were losing momentum pretty fast. And that's when, it was very subtle, but one of my colleagues just chimed in with a comment and pointed out, hey, just so everyone's aware, we have a master service agreement in place. And boom, back on track. For those not familiar with master service agreement, or MSA, it's a legal document. It describes how two companies work together. It's the framework for how you're going to work together moving forward. The problem in our industry is an MSA, especially as a vendor, is the holy grail. You have one, jackpot. You don't have one, you're looking at 6 to 18 months of extensive time with that company's legal, IT, procurement to get that piece of paper in place. In the meeting, and this is a real meeting, someone even mentioned, hey, you should have led with that, the MSA, at the start of your presentation. The meeting ended. Walking down the hallway, someone stopped me and said, hey, do you guys actually have any other products? I have budget available this quarter. In the moment, we closed the deal, success, all the great things that go with closing a deal. But in thinking about it in the days after, it was troubling. That feels wrong. That feels almost dirty. In the meeting, success in moving forward wasn't judged by the team, the idea. It was judged by a piece of paper and the fact that we had that VIP card in our back pocket. And I know for a fact, in that meeting, if it was a brand new company in the space with the same talented team, innovation, they were dead in the water. Zero chance it moves forward. Zero chance. So this line here is not novel. Like, I think we can all agree. Innovation doesn't exist just with the folks holding those MSAs and those preferred vendors. There's lots of innovation. There's lots of ideas. The problem that I see in our industry is how hard is it to get that VIP card? How hard is it for both the vendor and for you as the pharma company, the CRO, to champion that vendor to get that VIP card in their hands? If the amount of time and cost is too great, it's not worth it. It's not worth you sticking your neck out. You might not be in this job or this role next year, and if it's going to take that long, the study that you were thinking about is not there anymore, you missed this window of time, 6 to 18 months to maybe have a green light to a pilot, that just doesn't exist in other industries. And as a result, the unfortunate side effect of this is it's great for incumbents. It's great when you have the MSAs. But as an industry, there's only so many innovative ideas that those incumbents will have. The other challenge that I ran into that's unique to our industry is the complexity of the stakeholders involved. In most industries, you find a prospective buyer, you understand their pain, and you build a better product. You do a sales pitch, you sell them on the utility of what you're doing, and you're off to the races. But in our industry, there's a lot of players. There's the pharma exec sitting in a very large organization that has its own challenges and bureaucracies to navigate. They have to coordinate and manage things through their clinical research organization, or CRO, and make sure that there's buy-in and blessing and there's not going to be challenges or bottleneck there. That CRO is then going to administer this tool or solution and bring it to the clinical trial sites where the doctors and the research coordinators have to use this software and use these tools. And then with a lot of these solutions, ultimately there's a patient at the end of the line that is also interacting with these tools. Many stakeholders sitting in many different places, aside from a few conferences a year, rarely interacting or sharing those experiences or understanding each other's perspective. And so what's really unique in our industry is the buyers are not the end users. The folks with the budget don't know what the tool looks like or what it does or how good or bad it is. They're told how good it is by a sales team and the vendor, but they're not really seeing it or experiencing it themselves firsthand. So normally this wouldn't be an issue if there was open channels of communication, product feedback that flows back to the buyer, but the sad thing that I've experienced in recent years is you talk to a lot of decision maker buyers, and they have busy days and responsibilities, but they don't have the perspective of the end users. They will admit, I've never been to a clinical trial site. I don't talk to clinical trial sites. I think one of my colleagues goes to the conference where the sites are. I'm sure that person knows the perspective. It seems like just such a huge disconnect that allows solutions that maybe aren't so great, there's not a feedback loop to make them better. And for solutions that actually are winners and innovators, it's hard to win on merit. So I sound like a cynic on the stage. Fear not, I'm still very optimistic about our industry. It is challenging, but reaching the summit is achievable, it is possible, it is incredibly rewarding. It's just hard. What I really want to do is lead with an optimistic, like, how do we do better as an industry? How do we make it so that the climb is easier for the next set of innovators to follow? Reached out to a lot of friends, and kind of the feedback came in two different buckets. So there's the vendor, the person that has the innovation, the idea, the product. They're going to be our climber, working their way up to the top of Everest. And then there's the Sherpa. And I think the Sherpa is just as important in this conversation. They don't get as much credit as they're deserved. But this is going to be the internal champion working at that pharmaceutical company or CRO that has their own tough job ahead of them to guide and navigate a vendor to the finish line. So let's start with the Sherpas. Let's imagine you're a pharma executive, you're at a pharmaceutical company. You have a tough path. You need to find innovative ideas that you think will be game changers for your business. You need to win internal buy-in. You need to navigate a lengthy IT review process and procurement process. Set up a successful pilot, and then a year or two down the road, maybe we're at an enterprise rollout. And so when I asked for friends who are Sherpas, what would you recommend? What feedback do you have to be more successful and effective in your role? Some great feedback came back. The biggest one is just knowing the terrain, knowing the landscape of how your organization works. Process, decision makers, what can be run in parallel? What shortcuts exist? For this type of vendor, is an MSA even required? Can you get by with just an agreement? What sort of reorgs might change, and what priorities, and where's the change management both within your organization or your CROs or your site partners to make sure that there's no surprises along the way? Really understanding the full path start to finish on day one is important. And what I've seen a lot of times in a lot of conversations is a lot of this is just discovered along the way. There's no map. It's not well documented within the pharma company. Folks don't even know who the right IT point person is, and you're starting from scratch. So as a software developer, we're open source, and documentation is everything. It's surprising to me that there's not a viewable, here's our procurement guidelines for internal purposes, and here's what we share with vendors. There's no surprises. Everyone knows what are the stage gates to get to the summit together. The other thing that's interesting is the equipment. Standards matter. And so when you're on the mountain, when everyone has the same gear, that's great. It's interchangeable, it's familiar. The IT procurement process, for anyone that hasn't sat down and done one of those IT questionnaires, it is the most painful thing you could imagine. Our team spends a half hour on each question just trying to understand what's being asked. You complete these things, you send it off, and I think it's just a very broken process where every pharma has their own bespoke procurement set of questionnaires. And so one of the innovations here that I definitely recommend everyone take a look at is whether it's Avoca Group, Diligent Pharma, Life Science Marketplace. There are efforts to bring essentially what is the common app when you apply to college, but bringing that into our industry so that it's easier for vendors to share important data, make sure it's accurate, up to date, and then you as the buyer can properly and more efficiently run an assessment process. Communication, this is an obvious one, but there's wins here. If you think about it, if every day or week of slippage means that you might miss your window of time to get someone to the summit, that storm might roll in. So where's their lost time? Can things be done in parallel? Is a task sitting with a colleague and they don't realize it? This is a really small one, but it matters a lot. If you know that a vendor is coming in and giving a pitch, block off 20 minutes or 30 minutes after that to discuss internally, lock in next steps, and get back to the vendor right away. The amount of calls that end with we'll circle back around, and then we'll look at calendars, and now we're talking 3-4 weeks later when someone's discussing a tool that they don't even remember. It doesn't make any sense. Let's tighten that feedback loop. As a Sherpa, you're working with a vendor. You got to build trust with them. You got to set them up for success. Give them constructive feedback of where the pitfalls, where the challenges, where are you falling down. And then once you get to the summit yourself, how do you make it easier for your future colleagues and the next set of Sherpas to get there faster and avoid some of the same challenges and scars that you ran into? So now for the innovators, the vendors sitting on the outside. Kudos to you. It's a tough job, but it's a very worthy goal to have to get to the summit. You have to be prepared. You have to know the industry down, the acronyms, all the vendors in the ecosystem. You have to know different types of pharma organizations and how they're structured and how they make their decisions, from big pharma to mid-level to the long tail of biotech. You have to know what you're up against so there's no surprises along the way. And when you invest in your team, this is not just your employees. You have to make sure that you have a bridge to your Sherpas, and there's multiple Sherpas at each pharma company, and that you're investing in those relationships. You have investors and advisors that have done it before and can guide you to success. If you think about it, if you're a startup, the biggest risk to you working with a farm is you're not around next year. So how do you build conviction, whether that's through healthier fundraising, announcing that fundraising, having strategic relationships and partnerships that prove that you can get to the finish line and be around next year? And similar to the Sherpas, once you get to success, how do you pave the path for the next person to get there faster? And let's expand the tent and make it easier for more innovators to enter our industry. There's a lot to be excited about. Our industry is ripe for innovation. And I really do look forward to seeing the next wave of ideas, entrepreneurs, and companies navigating their path to success. Thank you very much.